Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I want to officially announce myself as a Kiseki / Trails fan, which kind of comes as no surprise to anyone because any opportunity I have, I'm going to bring up the Trails series, in particular Trails of Cold Steel. Really quickly, if you're someone that's coming across this video like, what the hell am I talking about? The Trails of, or Kiseki series is a JRPG franchise under the Legend of Heroes umbrella. These are a particular set of currently, 10 games going into 11 that basically all take place in the same universe. It's like Final Fantasy, but like in actuality, like I said, it actually does take place continuity-wise in the same. It's a continuously overarching story. There are different countries that focus on different arcs, and those are the different games. There's the Trails in the Sky games, Liberl, the Trails to Zero and Azure Crossbell games, and then you have the 4 Trails of Cold Steel games, which the Erebony arc. If you've never played those games, it means nothing to you. But there are these awesome JRPG games that I'm really into. In particular, the Trails of Cold Steel games. I'm like a fanatic about it because like I've talked about it before in a different video where like I was playing a different video game and I was like, you know what, why don't I pop in one of the Cold Steel games? And I just kept playing that instead of like a newer game I got because I'm that obsessed with them. I'm obsessed with that universe. That's why like I've beaten all 4 of the Cold Steel games and I've subsequently gone back to like, because the Cold Steel games, you know, obviously if you, more likely if you're coming across this video, you're a Kiseki fan as well, or maybe you're a newbie kind of like myself. I still consider myself a newbie. There's still a lot I don't know because the Cold Steel games were the first ones I ever played, and I played the entire arc first because I played all 4 games last year. Luckily for me, because 4, at least here in the US, came out in 2020, so like I didn't have to wait too long between playing 3 and getting 4. So that's a whole thing, but I played the entire Cold Steel arc, and you get, you know, winks and nods and general, like very generalities about everything that went down in the Liberl arc as well as the Crossbell arc, but obviously to fully showcase everything and get to know all the characters involved, you have to play the respective games. Sadly, I don't have a PC, so I can't play the Sky games or the the Crossbell games. So I have watched someone play. Like, so for example, I've seen all of the Sky arc, well, the Liberl arc. I am currently in the middle of like watching someone play Trails to Zero or Trails of Zero, the first game in the Crossbell arc. So obviously, like, you know, my bias is always going to be, oh yeah, Trails of Cold Steel is my favorite, simply because I think it comes from the fact is I actually played it, but I'm unable to play the others, so I think that's why like Cold Steel will always have an advantage. Plus, I've made it clear like it has my favorite character, Reed Schwarzer. He might just be in general my favorite protagonist, just because there's so much that I like. I mean, I've always, like, Estelle and Joshua just together as a duo, amazing. Their story, awesome. I love it. Once again, like, Cold Steel references some of that stuff, so I knew what, well, in different Cold Steel games in the series, reference some of that stuff, so I knew stuff going in there, but still, knowing where the destination is, but the journey to get there, there's a lot of other stuff that got thrown that way that I'm like, oh, I didn't know that because the Cold Steel games don't touch on that at all, so it's still worth it. Even if you're someone like me who's played all the Cold Steel games and you think you know, it's like, no, you still need to go back. There's so much, and even then it's like there's so much you can appreciate because I'm watching someone play it, and the person I'm watching play is someone who's very well versed in the Trails series as well. So, well, they have more experience because they played all the games up to that point, because that, regardless, tangents and all that aside, so they're a lot more knowledgeable, so, but it's like because of knowledge of Cold Steel, like what happens in the future, there's so much where you see like the groundwork laid of like, oh my god, that ends up paying off folds later on 2 arcs from now, and it's just like, oh my god, here's this character's introduction, and here's characters I didn't know that existed in this universe. It's just so cool. It's like, you know, I can nerd out about something. Like when I deep dive into something, I deep dive into it. I'm invested, and I'm invested in Zumeria. I'm invested in his universe. So obviously this is a franchise I'm going to definitely be following going forward. Obviously Hajimari hasn't come out here in the US. It's only a Japanese-based game. I haven't been keeping up with it, so I don't know if there are currently any plans of translating it. I mean, probably, but I don't know if there's anything official now at the time of me recording it. Like I said, I don't keep up a lot with that, but I have obviously come across videos of some of like gameplay trailers and stuff like that for Kuro no Kiseki, that being the next game taking place in the Calvert arc and everything. So even with the limited amount of time I've spent with the Crossbow L arc so far, I'm really enjoying it, especially because like you get, you know, it's interesting because I was going for like, because the story arc's going from bracers to cops who kind of work like bracers to students who kind of work like military people while also kind of doing bracer work as well. So it's interesting going from these three different like groups with obviously vastly different backgrounds amongst all these different characters. It's just so good, and I love it so much. I mean, and you know, and I said Ring's my favorite character, but he's not the only thing I love about the Cold Steel games. I love everything. I love the story. I love not just, you know, Ring, Class 7 in general, old and new. Oh, so good. So good. But it's not even just him. Like every other character, like your Thor's alumni from OG, like, and I've talked about this before. Cold Steel is the first game that ever made me go, you know what, I'm going to talk to every NPC. It is actually ridiculous how much text is in those games, especially like when you like talk to NPCs at different points in time throughout the game, especially kind of during like the day and evening cycle, because obviously dialogue changes, and once you've done certain things, it's like, oh, certain NPCs dialogue might change in if like, oh, you complete a quest or whatnot. So those games are just so good, and just like the relationships between so many characters and so many arcs, both main characters as well as NPCs. That's what's so cool about this, to see NPCs arcs. You literally get to see NPCs like relationships build over the course of those games, of like, oh, here's like the beginning of a relationship, and then you get to like the end of their arc and it's like, oh my god, like they're official couple. In some cases, NPCs have actually straight up gotten married. It's so cool. And that's why it just gets me even more excited, like obviously to like learn about the past, but also like looking forward to the future. I'm like losing my shit. I'm like, dude, for one, I want to play Hajimari, and I'm doing everything I can to avoid spoilers, because I'm all like nuts about Cold Steel and the Trails of series in general. I've screwed up my YouTube algorithm, so I'm getting shown things. Luckily, people are like, spoilers in the titles. I'm like, so I know to look away. But it just makes me so excited for the next arc, the Calvert arc, especially because at the time I did a video talking about some of the stuff that is what we know about the Calvert arc, you know, about the Kuro no Kiseki, like gameplay wise and like some of the features. I made a video, and then like I felt like such an idiot, because afterwards I was like, after a while and getting reintroduced to like a lot of Zumeri stuff, I'm like, there's so much I didn't think about. I didn't think about Jack and Hale, like, you know, from the Gambler Jack books. It didn't even cross my mind. Of course we're going to meet them in the Calvert arc, you know? And obviously because I got introduced to Zen, I'm like, oh, and we even see him in some of the trailers, like him and Fee, which I'm like, yo, and Fee's new outfit, dude. I'm giddy all around. Like I said, I'm all about this. I don't think I've ever been this obsessed with a franchise since like maybe Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts. I think Kingdom Hearts might be the last, because I don't play that many video games, especially franchises, but because I'm more of a JRPG dude, and I probably like sporadically play like JRPGs, but like Kingdom Hearts is currently the only franchise I've probably got like all the games, luckily, because they like remastered a lot of that and put it literally all in one game with the exception of 3, but you can, there is a packaging to get 10 games at that time, you know. Now it's 11, tangents and all that aside, but yeah, to anyone that is curious, like when it comes to my experience with Cold Steel, I've played 1, 2, and 3 times all the way through. I've actually platinumed all of them, which I'm proud. The games aren't hard to platinum anyway, but still. And 4 I've only played once. And I haven't touched it since a little after I beat it, which was back in like November of last year. I had actually started my New Game Plus, because to anyone that's curious about what trophies I'm missing the bonding event trophies and the Nightmare, like beating the game on Nightmare. So I was going to start that, but then I was like, you know what? No, I'm a learn everything about the Sky arc, well, the Laburo arc, and then the Crossbell arc before I play the Cold Steel games again, which I talk about. They're almost like crack, because I'm like, I still get that. I'm like, I should pop them in. Yeah, I just pop them in. It doesn't help that my PS4 background, when I accidentally end up rolling over on my controller and turning my PS4 on, is literally the last screenshot of Trails of Cold Steel 4. No spoilers for anyone that hasn't played it, you know, knows nothing about this franchise, even though I've kind of talked and spoiled a little bit of stuff. Regardless, it's the final thing you see when you beat Cold Steel 4. That's my background, and I get, like, it fills me with so much warmth. I'm like, that's so good, it's so beautiful. I want to play these games again. But regardless, I want to be fully knowledgeable about the past before, you know, because there's a lot of stuff even in the earlier Cold Steel game, well, just in general across the entire Erebonian arc, where they reference stuff from Liberl and Crossbow that like I have some faint knowledge of beforehand, but now I have full knowledge. Well, at least with Liberl, I haven't completed the Crossbow arc, obviously, but yeah, like, so once I do that, I'm gonna go back through all of the Cold Steel games again, starting with 1, playing it for the 4th time, then 2 for the 4th time, and then 3 for the 4th time. If you ask me what my favorite is, I honestly think it's 3. I really like 4, but it's like, it's a tie. I think 3 kind of edges it out a little bit, but I really liked 4 a lot. I downright loved it, but I think I love 3 just a little bit more. It just gets me so giddy with just a lot of, you know, a lot of what they do, like winks and nods to, you know, not just older stuff now that have knowledge about the older games, but also like, you know, them paying homage to stuff in the Ereboni arc within itself, you know, with the earlier 2 games. It's a whole thing. But yeah, really quickly, like I brought it up, the bonding events. The bonding event trophies, I could like technically like grind those out my first playthrough, but I decided not to. Usually I grind those out like my 2nd or 3rd playthrough, just because I want to be able to, because, you know, once you do it, a new game plus, you unlock, oh, max bonding points. So that means all available bonding events, you can do all of them. And that's when I want everything to be maxed out. And then when I get to the end, now I can just go, okay, I'm gonna do this, you know, do this and do this. Like, if you're curious, oh, who did I choose the first time through? I talked about this in my discussion of Trails of Cold Steel 4, spoiler discussion if you haven't seen those already. Well, I've actually did a spoiler discussion on 1, 2, 3, and 4. I plan on doing like extras later on with like the newfound Kiseki knowledge I have, and will have even more so in the future. But I kind of went on a tangent, kind of lost my place. Essentially, what I was saying was, like, I get the bonding events max that way, like, you know, I can just do everything all at once, kind of like when I get to that end. I am kind of bummed 1, 2, and 4, you kind of have to grind them out. Like, if you want to unlock them, you either have to do multiple playthroughs or you'd have to, like, reload your save. 3, fortunately enough, if you do all the bonding events, if you get all the gifts throughout over the course of 3, and in a single playthrough and everything, you'll be able to like max everyone out and see their scenes all at once. Once again, that's only possible on a New Game Plus, and once again, that's if you make sure to get everyone's as maxed out as possible before you reach Heimdall at the end and everything. So, because the festival, you have just enough tickets. Like, if you did everything right to like spend one event with everyone, and you end up unlocking everything. Technically, too, because you will always have to like still. You know, do it for Alphen, and if you want to get Elise's gift, you have to like max hers out, so you'd have to like double up on Alphen and Elise, but everyone else you would generally only have to do 1. Tangents and all that aside. So that's why I'm kind of bummed about 4, is the fact is that it's like 1, 2, it's like 1 and 2 where you have to like grind it out. You can't just like do it all at once. I mean, it makes sense. It's like who you're spending like the most important night with, like, and everything. Right. I went on, like, I remember now what it was I was bringing up earlier. Like, who was it? If you hadn't watched, like I was saying, like, if you hadn't watched my discussions, like, who did I spend my night with? It was Elisa. Elisa's the first one in 1, 2, 3, and 4 that, like, I, like, made sure, like, that's the max bond, person you bond with. Because, like, to me, that's the canonical relationship. I know it's like a Persona game, so everyone, like, there is no official canonical relationship, but, like, to me, when you, like, Rena and Elisa have so many moments over the course of the game that are just so, like, cute, and, you know, yes, there's tsundere elements to their relationship, especially to Elisa, but obviously that evolves and stays the same while also changing in many different regards as the games have progressed. So, once again, this is also coming from the perspective of I don't have Hajimari canon in mind because I have not played that. I also don't want to know anything. Once again, I cannot stress that enough. I don't know a lot about Hajimari other than like trailers, and I don't want to know. So, but yeah, like I said, I just went on this huge tangent. I'm looking for any excuse to talk about the Trails games because I get so hyped about it, dude. Like I said, even right now, talking about it makes me want to just, my PS4 is like right here behind me. I want to pop them in and just start playing, but it's like, no, learn to control yourself, Michael. Get through the Crossbow arc, and then you can immediately start playing these again. And I'm just like, oh, dude, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to relive the awesomeness that is those games, dude. Like I said, I liked the liberal arc a lot, and I'm liking the crossbow arc. But once again, like I think because I played it first, the Cold Steel arc is always going to have a special place in my heart. Those characters are always going to have a special place in my heart. So obviously, this is me going on a massive tangent. Kind of no point, just other than just kind of geek out and nerd out about Kiseki. If you are someone who's watching this video that's like, oh, I've never played any of these games, you need to change that. Not just a Cold Steel game. I'm telling you, like, yeah, like, you know, like I said, I start with the Cold Steel game, but it would be so much better to start with the liberal games, Trails in the Sky, and then do Crossbell, and then do Cold Steel. Dude, it's such an amazing world. The continent of Zumeria is so dope. The lore and the characters are so good all across the board that, you know, I just think, like, you should start from the beginning if you have the opportunity. Obviously, there are people who have done walkthroughs and let's plays on YouTube, so if you want to watch, like, the older games and only play the Cold Steel games, sure, but I would say it's better. As someone who wasn't able to play those games, I say it's better to play those if you are able to, rather than just like watch someone, because I think it feels so much better just to be able to do everything kind of, you know, it being more interactive, you playing it yourself. Regardless, so that's kind of to any newbies. But my big question to any Kiseki fans out there, let's talk Kiseki, let's talk Trails. You want to talk about things, we can talk about things. Granted, we can go into some liberal spoilers, try and avoid Crossbell spoilers. You know, if you really want to go deep in some like Cold Steel spoilers, hey, we can do that. I'm all about that. But just because I haven't fully finished everything, I know because of Cold Steel where some of the Crossbell stuff ends up, but I don't know the grand scheme of everything. So I'm working my way through it. This video should be going up by Friday, so I should be a little bit further in the Crossbell arc by then, so it's still going to be a concern, but regardless. I just want to know in general, like, how you feel about the Kiseki arc. I'd love to know which games do you start with first. Were you like most people and started with Cold Steel, or have you been someone that's like, nah, I've been following it since the beginning? What's your favorite? You know, whether you want to do by arc, you know, what's your favorite in the Liberal arc? What's your favorite in the Crossbell arc? What's your favorite in the Arabonia arc? Or maybe just in general across the Trails games, you might like, nah, I have one distinct favorite. Just let me know all your Kiseki, Trails, nerdy goodness, thoughts, and everything in the comments down below. Really, that's all I want to talk about. Finally, I can shut up. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye. I do love that I said I can finally shut up, but no one's forcing me to talk other than me.